In Level 1, we will be evaluating functions and function notation. In the past, we have evaluated simple functions, like we might have had an equation like, I don't know, j of x equals 2x squared plus 5x. And we might have had to find something like j of, I don't know, -3. And what we do is -3 is our x that we plug in to all the x's in the function. So I would do 2 times -3 squared plus 5 times -3. So we're just plugging that number inside into the function and then evaluating. At this point, you can plug this whole thing right into your calculator exactly the way it's written, or you can use order of operations and do it by hand. If I use order of operations, my exponent would come first, so I get 2 times -3 squared is +9, so 2 times 9. Next I could multiply this part, and 5 times -3 is -15. 2 times 9 is 18, so 18 plus -15 or -15 is 3, and that would be my answer. So that's how we evaluate functions. But in this skill, we're actually going to be combining more than one function. And what we're going to be doing is, depending what operation you have in your function, whether it's addition, multiplication, subtraction, or division, you're going to be evaluating two different functions for the same number, and then at the end you would either add, multiply, subtract, or divide your two answers. So this makes more sense if we look at an example. If we look at part A, g minus f of -3, that means we're plugging -3 into both f and g. So this actually means g of -3 minus f of -3. I'm plugging that same number into both g and f. So first I'm going to evaluate g of -3. I plug -3 into the function g, so I get the square root of -8 times -3 plus 12. And then I either plug it in my calculator or simplify, and that's the square root of 24 plus 12, or the square root of 36, and that's a perfect square. It comes out to 6. So that's what the answer to the first part, g of -3. Now I have to evaluate f of -3, so I'm plugging that same number, -3, into f also. So I go up to my function f, and I plug -3 into it. So I get 2 times -3 squared plus -3. Following order of operations, -3 squared is +9, so I get 2 times 9 minus 3, or 18 minus 3, which is 15. So my two answers were 6 and 15. And then my final step is to subtract those. First, g of 3 has to go in the beginning because it came first, and then I subtract f of -3. So g of -3 was 6. F of -3 is 15. I subtract those two answers, and my final answer is -9. Okay, part B is actually a little different. The function h has two variables, h of x, y. It has both x's and y's in it. So we're going to be plugging -2 and 3 in for x and y, and x is going to be -2, y is going to be 3. So I replace all the x's in this function with -2, so we get -2 times, for y I plug in 3, and then that's squared, plus, and then for x I plug in -2 to the third, times y I plug in 3. And, oops, for this y, I meant to write 3. Okay, so following order of operations, I'm going to do my exponents first. 3 squared is 9, so we get negative 2 times 9 plus, and then negative 2 to the third is negative 8 times 3. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18, and negative 8 times 3 is negative 24. And when we add those together, we get negative 42 as our final answer for that one. So we were just plugging two different values, one in for x, one in for y, into the same function. Okay, and then for our last example, we are going to be using two different functions again. So it's kind of like our first example, but in this one with the closed dot, we are going to be multiplying two functions together. So I'm going to multiply, first of all, 1 is going to be plugged into both functions, and then I'm going to multiply the two answers. So I'm going to find f of 1 and g of 1 and multiply them together. So f of 1, I plug 1 into f of x, and we get 2 times 1 squared plus 1. That comes out to 3. And then I find g of 1. I plug 1 into g of x, and we get the square root of negative 8 times 1 plus 12, which is the square root of 4, and that's 2. So then my two answers were 3 and 2, and now I'm going to multiply them together. 3 times 2, and my final answer is 6.